All right. Well, now I have the opportunity to interview Richard Cooper, the author of the Unplugged Alpha, one of the persons that has definitely inspired me to achieve greatness and leave a dent in the universe and all that good stuff that I inspire for myself. Um, Richard has been doing a lot of great work and has definitely helped a lot of young men and older men to just figure out their lives and how to avoid their life to become a train wreck, which is one of his podcasts
Mhm.
too. So that's pretty dope. Richard, thank you for joining me today for this quick little interview. Wanted to know if you don't mind sharing a little bit about your unplugging and basically what does unplugging mean for you?
Okay, so it's part of the title of the book that I wrote called The Unplugged Alpha on Amazon, and it started with the notion of unplugging and taking the red pill, but I feel it needs a much broader application because too much of that part of the YouTube and internet focuses way too much on women. Um, I've been quoted many times as saying chase excellence, not women. That doesn't mean just chase excellence and not understand women, but the process of unplugging. I mean, if you take a wagon wheel, like a big wheel, there's several spokes to it. It's not just one spoke. And if one spoke is the only thing connecting the hub to the edge of the wheel, you're not going to have a very effective wheel. If you have two or three more, let's say, it's slightly more effective, but it's still not what it needs to be to stand up to proper use, right? It's going to collapse eventually. So when I'm talking to guys about unplugging, I mean, let's just take five. Let's say there's seven, eight, or 10 spokes of this wheel, but let's just take five main ones just so we can give your audience something to chew on. Um, let's start with the red pill part, right? Because what that deals with is seeing what women really respond to, right? Versus what we've been told that they respond to. We've been told be a nice guy, be humble, become less so she can become more, blah, 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 all of these narratives. And what guys typically find if, they become the nice guy is they just get used. They just get treated like an emotional tampon. Um, she'll cry to the nice guy about, the things going on in the world and then go and bang Mr. Exciting bad boy sort of thing, right? That's just how women are wired to operate. And that changes, throughout time, depending on how old they are and even where they are in their menstrual cycle during the month. So just one spoke of the wheel involves dealing with what women actually respond to, which is more or less, what the red pill summed up as it's known today. But you really have to broaden that, right? Because there's so much more to it, to understand. Like you're a fit guy, obviously, so we can deal with something like self-care. And self-care to me isn't just looking fit and being strong and living in a masculine body. I mean, I've done that my entire life. At my age, I'm still fitter than probably 99% of guys right now. I mean, most of them couldn't do 30 push-ups, 10 chin-ups, and skip rope for 2 minutes straight. It's just, I mean, that's asking way too much of guys today, right? So just being fit and living in a healthy body and being strong is one thing. Good, you can deadlift. So what? You can squat. Okay, you can throw in a few plates and bench. Can you fight though? Right? So there's a competency element, that needs to be built into self-care, right? What if somebody breaks in your house? And what if you live somewhere where you don't have a weapon or you're traveling and you don't have a weapon to defend yourself? Can you use your fists? Can you fight? Right? So I mean, like, you have to broaden the scope of plugged in versus unplugged. And I think that when you're unplugging in a lot of different areas in your life and seeing things as they really are. I mean, let's talk about money next, right? That's an important one. I mean, a lot of people don't have a good relationship with money, meaning they're either carrying way too much debt. They went to post-secondary education and racked up 50, 100, $200,000 worth of student loan debt, and they don't really have a foreseeable way out of it. That could be one thing. It could be consumer credit card debt because they were told that they were richer than they thought they were, and they took on credit facilities that they couldn't afford to pay off, which are essentially designed to keep you in a perpetual cycle of being in debt. So when you deal with the money component of it, I believe that when you unplug from the notion of what money really is, it's a store of value that creates freedom for people, right? When you've got access to financial resources, you can throw that at some serious problems in the world. You can also refuse to do things that you don't want to do that might compromise your core values. If somebody were to say to me, "Hey, Rich, there's this big paying project, whatever." Let's say a podcasting company said to me, "Hey, Rich, we'll give you $100 million to do this podcast on this platform only." If it's not aligned with me, and I've already got money, I'm just going to tell them to pound sand because I'm not interested. I don't care how much money it is because I'm anti-fragile and I don't need it, right? So when it comes to money, it's not just, buying the, proverbial, white picket fence home, having the station wagon and a driveway with the 2.1 kids and a fluffy dog. Money is a lot more than just paying your mortgage and putting a roof over your head and food in your stomach. It's a store of value that's very useful for solving problems. And if you're going to acquire FU money, you really need to have FU skills too, right? Which most people don't understand, which just ties into the competency thing. So in my second book, like I'm diving into a lot of those concepts to really expand on a lot further. But the process of unplugging is really unplugging from comforting lies that you've been sold your entire life and plugging into uncomfortable truths. Comforting lies sell very well. Just take the, just wear a mask, we'll flatten the curve, stand on these dots, get one jab, get two jabs, get three jabs, get a passport. It's like it never ends. They keep feeding people comforting lies about, this thing that's going on around us today. But the truth of the matter is, when you unplug from it and you start to see, the data and what's really going on and who's at risk and who's not at risk and what happens to people when they take it versus they don't take it, that's when you start to see the reality of things. And far, far too many people just nod their head and they're like, yes, we'll comply, master, and we'll just, we'll stand in line. They're all NPCs, right? They're just sheep marching into a slaughterhouse is what it is.
Do you think that the unplugged alpha and some of the terms there apply to females as well? And some of this unplugging process can also benefit females? And if not, why?
I talk to men, okay? Do women watch my material? Yeah, about 10% of my audience on my YouTube channel is women, right? You can go see it. It's Entrepreneurs and Cars. I've seen women read my book and leave female reviews. Most of it is quite positive. But I deal with men, right? And it's not that I don't deal with women or I don't want to deal with women. I've done probably a handful. I can get them on one or two hands. I've done well over 1,000 consults privately, with people for coaching, but I've talked to a few women. Can women unplug the way that men can? Sure, but women are totally different in their thinking. They come from a more emotional perspective, and women also put a lot more trust, and I don't even know if trust is the right word, but women get duped a lot easier by big state and daddy government than what I see men getting duped, So can they unplug? Absolutely. It's seeing the reality of the world for what it is not an easy thing to do. Otherwise, more guys would be unplugged. I mean, if I were to estimate it, I'd say probably less than 5 to 10% of the population actually understands what's really going on in the world. Most people just sleepwalk through life, men and women inclusive. It's just, it is what it is.
What makes a person be plugged in? What does that process look like for an individual?
They do things that don't serve them. They do things that that don't let them put themselves first, that don't allow them to control their own sovereignty and their own direction in life. Again, we can go back to the example of just 2 weeks to flatten the curve, lock down, wear these masks, stand on these dots, take a jab, take another jab, take a third jab, get this passport. It's like one thing after the other. It's like, you still don't have freedom. You have like a tyrannical environment where they're constantly stealing your freedom and telling you what to do. And if you can't see that for what that is, you're plugged in. You're plugged into lies, to be specific.
I remember seeing on your channel that you were saying that these are uncomfortable truth. Why do you think it's so uncomfortable?
Because it's hard. And it usually requires you to do work. So, I mean, if I tell guys, for example, because most women today find the vast majority of men unattractive. If you take a look at the swiping habits of women on dating apps, I think you've read my book, right?
I'm sorry, you cut off for a second there. You said
I think you've read
dating
my
apps,
book, right?
Yeah, I do. I did read you.
Yeah, so I cover this part of my book, so this will be, familiar for you. But women on dating apps, like even if she's a 3 out of 10, in the looks department categorically, if you showed a picture to a bunch of guys and they rated her like a 3 out of 10, even if she's a 3 out of 10, she's only going to swipe right on guys that she's going to estimate are an 8 out of 10 or better, right? So women think the vast majority of guys out there don't cut it. And then when you tell guys that they don't cut it because their looks aren't right. I mean, what is it? Something like 60% of the North American population is categorically obese, morbidly obese, getting there. Like they've got underlying conditions like diabetes and all the other stuff that comes along with it. So most guys don't look good, to begin with. But if you tell them, to eat healthy and lift weights and exercise and drop the poundage so that they can, see their Johnson when they get out of the shower, sometimes that's too much for them. They don't like that, right?
Yeah.
You tell them to get a style. Like some guys are just holding on to scraps, right? I shave my head because why? Like why bother holding on to scraps or trying to, pretend it's not happening? You surrender to it, and you move on. There's a large chunk of the female population that finds bald men very attractive and sexy. Okay, well, those are the ones that I want to appeal to. They don't like bald guys. I don't care. I don't need to deal with you, right? So, like, there's all these comforting lies that guys will start to hear, and they'll jump through all these hoops, doing things that they think will get them, results, but they don't. Yeah. And this is what I'm doing. Like I'm unplugging guys from the BS. Like the first step in unplugging is becoming aware of your own BS. The second step in unplugging is starting to become aware of their BS, right? And a lot of guys, just dealing with their own internal bullcrap is very, very hard to do because they were told, let's just deal with the nice guy thing, like one very small, narrow area. Just be a nice guy. Just be yourself, right? You've probably heard that at some point in your life. The advice usually comes from our mothers or, some part of society that just says, just be a nice guy or just be yourself and the right girl will one day magically come along. Yeah?
Well, I think that for how I approach that is don't be arrogant, don't be stubborn, learn to be humble, or at least how I approach being.
So let's talk about humble, nice arrogance. What else did you say? There was humble, arrogance. What was the third one?
Stubborn and kind of like, being the type of person that doesn't examine his own life in a way that allows himself to judge his character and the areas that he needs to improve.
Okay.
And
so let's just hit on those traits, because what you're talking about is you're starting to lean into like dark triad traits is what they're often called, or disagreeableness. But I mean, here's the interesting thing about being more disagreeable, and women on personality traits are more often than not more agreeable, and strong alpha, high testosterone cues men are more disagreeable. And guess what? These guys make more money. They have more access to women, their entire life. They generally have a better standard of living. I mean, you go right down the list, but the more disagreeable you are as a guy, and I'm not talking like, the narcissistic, like psychopathy sort of corner of the dark end of that spectrum, but the more you lean into being more disagreeable, the better a life you'll have as a guy. Not agreeing with the norm, not complying with the nonsense that they tell you to do that serves their agenda and their narrative. That's what the whole point of this concept of mental point of origin really means is, are you putting yourself first? When you make decisions, when people tell you what to do, when they're advising you on this, that, or the other thing, are you saying to yourself, okay, does this serve me? How does this serve me? How does this serve the people in my inner perimeter, the circle that I love, sort of thing? And then you decide for yourself, okay, well, if it doesn't, then I'm just not going to do those things.
So that basically examining the intent and intention, the intent and intentions of your decisions and how it affects not only yourself, but your inner circle. That's what allows you to keep your integrity and your heart pure.
Sure. I mean, like that's one way to look at it, the pure heart narrative, but it's really just putting yourself first, man. It's doing what's right for you. It's doing what's right for your family, doing what's right for the people that you love, that you've drawn a perimeter around to protect. That's what matters. That's in my estimation what matters. The problem is we're not told that today. We're told to follow this globalist narrative of everybody's equal. Let's be more inclusive, and that's how we, have arrived at this place today where words are violence now today. Yeah. When I was a kid, we could go to the schoolyard in grade 4 or 5, and some guy, was goofing off, causing problems, and you'd be like, Timmy's retarded, and you just kind of walk away. You can't use that word today.
You can't.
Generally speaking, because that's violence. Because
I'm
in
the dark. I live in California
playground,
now, so
might have like a sibling that's on the spectrum that might be offended by that, right?
Of course, yeah. I've stumbled across that already. I live in California, and a friend of mine said that at a party, and someone at the party got really upset. So it was a
imagine that, right?
Yeah. I can see where you're coming from there. And for me, the reason that I'm talking about the intention of one's heart and, being humble and learning not to be arrogant, and I can relate to what you're talking about being on the side of being disagreeable and how that allows you to not align with the lies. If you're disagreeing with the
as long
lies,
as you're not hurting
focusing
anybody, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Like I should have the right to choose to do things as long as I'm not hurting anybody.
Mm-hmm. And being on I would say, blue state, I think is what it is, more of a liberal state in California, I've stumbled across this need to have to be able to socialize with people. I have to have more of an open mind. And having an open mind just forces you to view these realities. But for me, it's all right, how do I accept what you're saying and respect your point of view without it being a part of me? And, I respect your point of view. I understand what you're saying. I don't agree with it, and that's okay. Just like you said, you do you, I do me. As long as you're not hurting me, as long as you're not hurting anyone, then we're good. That is something that I strive for in my life in terms of being a good guy or a good person, and in terms of how I approach my interactions with other individuals is starting from the premise of respect first. And in the moment that respect is crossed, then then we're going to have issues. But as long as you approach an individual with respect, regardless of what their point of view might be, if you're not disrespecting me or my loved ones, then we're good. You might have a different point of view, you might have a different perspective of life, and I think that that's where walking on that gray line of being on the blue or being on the red or whatever, like, as long as we respect each other and the intent of each individual's heart is genuine and pure to not hurt others, then it's all good.
Okay, so let me just touch on that for a sec, because like the notion of respect that you're talking about, that's a plugged-in belief, right? Like that's a lie, because all you have to do is look at the way that people behave today. And, if I say that I don't want to wear a mask and I don't want to take a jab, then that should be enough. I don't need to earn anybody's respect. Now, here's the thing. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of people out there, they wouldn't respect me for saying that publicly. They're going to say that, oh, I'm putting people's health at risk. They're going to say that I'm being selfish. They're going to point and sputter at me and make up all kinds of narratives about what a terrible person I am and how I'm exposing people to risk in my own family and those out there and blah, 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 even though all the evidence has countered all that. Right. Okay. So people don't respect other people's opinions today. See, people don't want to respect your opinions. What they want to do is they want to hear their opinions come out of your mouth. That's what they're looking for. Right. Okay. So when they disagree with you, they're generally looking for that. So an unplugged way to view that is from that perspective and angle, and then just being different about it. I don't care if you respect my views. I don't care if you like my opinions or not. I don't even care if you're going to respect them. You do you. I don't give a fuck. Right? I'm going to go over here and do me.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's definitely a lot easier because that helps you, like you say in your book, manage your fucks.
Right.
Yeah. So you care.
I mean, there's a reason why I put that
chapter
chapter in there, because I wanted to be clear. Like, you don't want to waste your energy on things that are not worthy of that, because you only have so much energy in the day to dispense on things that are worthy of energy. And if you're spending time like, well, I respect your opinion, Bill, and that's good because I respect your opinion. That's not how the world works today, right? It's just like, most guys that don't like what I'm doing want me to do what they're doing. Right? They don't respect what I'm doing. They don't respect my opinions. They want me to say what they're saying. Right?
Exactly.
It's like, okay, dude, I don't care. You do you.
That makes sense.
How's that working out for you? Right. And that's how I, handle, situations like that. So, I mean, the truly unplugged guys will just be like, hey, you do you, and I'll be over here. Just leave me alone.
Yeah. Okay. I can respect that. All right. So, one of the chapters that really intrigued me was from your book was a red flags chapter. It talks everything from personality to life decisions to physical appearances and things that they've done to affect their physical appearances, you know, from tattoos, excessive piercings, you know, it's 20 things. But without going into the details of all of it, do you believe that the biggest one out of all of these is the inability to acknowledge their issues and work on improving them? Because considering that all those things are present or not, I believe that a person's biggest red flag, biggest toxic trait is, without a doubt, in my own personal experience, is the inability to recognize their own faults, the inability to recognize their own mistakes, their inability to acknowledge their contribution to the problems in their interpersonal relationships, regardless of their relationship with you, their relationships with their parents.
What did I say earlier about the first step in
stuff.
unplugging?
Understanding
Recognizing
dynamics.
your own bullshit.
Oh, recognizing your own bullshit. Yeah.
Right? So the first step in unplugging is recognizing your own bullshit.
Okay.
And let's deal with it from the female perspective, because the the book's written for guys, let's just be honest. And the chapter's written about, these red flags that you should be aware of. And, by the way, all of these red flags that I mentioned in the chapter come from well over 1,000 consults with guys and just note taking what it was that was the catalyst and the problem that they're dealing with, right? Because I always say guys are masters of complicating their lives and then justifying why they do it. And looking past a red flag is a really bad move on a guy's part. And you can date these women. You can date a woman with all 20 of these red flags. You can marry them. You can put babies in them. You can do all of that stuff. But I'm going to tell you right now, if you ignore those red flags, you're going to complicate your life in a way that's going to turn into biblical proportions of like headaches, right? So my advice to guys is, if you're going to invite a woman into your life, whether that's as a girlfriend or a wife or whatever that happens to be, you vet for red flags so that you don't invite a nightmare into your life. Guys, I'm going to look in the camera when I say this. You're allowed to have a pleasant, fun life and, experience with women. Like, there are good women out there still, right? So vetting for the red flags is a really, really important thing to do. So back to your point of accountability. Here's a big problem with women. I can't remember the movie, but there was a soundbite somewhere. It's on the internet if you go look for it. And it's Jack Nicholson talking to a woman, and a woman, runs up to him. She's like, "How do you know women so well?" sort of thing. And he goes, "Well, I think of a guy, and then I take away accountability and reason." And then he just turns around and walks away to get out of the conversation. Now, does that mean women aren't accountable or they don't have reason? No, but they're more emotional than men. And it's also why, you'll see most of, let's take something as the fat acceptance movement. There's this movement now for fat acceptance, meaning if you're morbidly obese and you've made some lifestyle choices that are bad, that have created a body that's inflamed, and you're obese and your knees hurt and you've got underlying conditions and stuff like that, they want you to accept that. Well, that's a lack of accountability, and by a wide margin, overwhelmingly, this narrative is coming from women, not from men. Right? Men aren't saying, that's body shaming, or why can't you accept me for who I am? All you got to do is go on social media, on TikTok, and it's always morbidly obese, left-leaning women with short purple hair saying that, they're not different from the skinny model that's on the billboard, posing for, swimsuit competitions or whatever. They're equal, and that's a lack of accountability.
The thing that I have faced with people that present that mindset, accept me for who I am, and don't acknowledge that that isn't who they are. That is their bad decisions forming them into that. Also want you to accept their negative personality traits.
Yeah, they want you to accept their personality traits, their debt, the 3 kids they bring to the table from 3 guys, from the past, that it's not their fault. It's all of those things. They want you to accept a whole bunch of stuff, which makes a lot of women today, for guys, incredibly difficult or even insufferable for them to want to deal with.
Interesting. Well, we're both on the same page. It's all about accountability, and if if you're speaking out of the narrative, you need to unplug, because you're plugged into the lies that just being good and accepting yourself is enough. Then that same narrative should, in some way, apply to females. You need to unplug from the lies that just being a good woman is enough. You need to improve your health, improve your mental health, and all these things that encompass.
And there are women that will take accountability. I mean, like, I'm not saying that that's not possible. There are women that do it. It's just, it doesn't happen that often. There's an entire genre of podcasts and YouTube call-in shows right now where guys try to hold women accountable and help them understand, why they get the results that they get. And I'm sure you've seen a few of them, right?
I mean, I don't really dive in on what makes a good woman good.
No, like, I'm talking about the shows, specifically that are doing this. Like, there's a lot of views on them. Kevin Samuels is a immediate.
I've seen Kevin Samuels a few times.
There's that. There's the Fresh and Fit podcast. So there's an entire genre out there of men purporting to hold women accountable, and they don't. It just turns into Jerry Springer for dudes. It's all drama. Right, it's like, he got her, burn, like that. Like, that's why guys watch.
So if what they're doing isn't necessarily what females really need, how would you, if you were to dive into, which I'm pretty sure you might not, but if you decided to help women out, how would you approach it differently than these individuals?
How would I approach it? I would approach it from the perspective of a concerned father. Like, I would be talking to my own daughter.
You do have a daughter, right?
Yeah. Now, would they listen? From what I've seen on the other shows, no. Okay. It would make for good viewing, though. I'd probably have one of the bigger channels out there, if I set up a show like that, because I'm real good at that, right? But, would they listen? Probably not. But that's the way that I would encourage, to try to handle it from that perspective. They're not going to want to hear, be pleasant, be agreeable, don't be a feminist, enter his frame, compliment his life, don't be the focus of it, don't bring drama into his life, don't bring children from past relationships into his life. They don't like hearing stuff like that, because that means that they have to be held accountable to certain standards, right? But, on the other hand, they want high-value Chad-looking guys with lots of money. Like, they want guys that look like you with my kind of cash, right? That's what they want. And it's like, guys that look like you with my kind of cash, what percentage of the population do you think exists? Like, all these women that are swiping left on the dating apps, like the 80% of the guys that are not attractive, right? That's like most of the dudes out there. There's a very, very few small, like tiny percentage of the male population that ticks off all the boxes of what women, and plus they want you to be nice and kind and funny and competent and know how to hang shelves and put up with their kids' bullshit and like do like they have this laundry list of like 300 different things, right? Yeah. So that's why
you said last time on one of your podcasts was the 6-figure job. It was a couple
the 6 6s. So it's 6-figure income, 6-pack abs, 600 horsepower car, 6 months out of a relationship, 6 inches in the pants. What's the last one? I can't remember. You get the idea, though.
Of course, you have to be as best as you can, but also accept them as they come. And it's a difficult equation to really consider worth it. I got 2 more questions, and we can kind of end this up. What are some of the red flags that men mostly present in their lives?
To other men or to other women?
In general, what are some of the red flags that men present? Let's start out with them for themselves. In my perspective, being too in social media, watching news and allowing all those narratives to dive into the head is one of them. And being too plugged into the phone and on Instagram, Facebook, wasting hours at a time on that. That's one of them. And I'd say, just like we were talking earlier, lacking accountability on those aspects. So I need to work. I need to make money. I need to be healthy.
So number 1 is being aware of their own bullshit, right? Which is a big one, which, if we're being honest, encompasses everything, if you want to include in there. Number 2 is being aware of everybody else's bullshit. Okay. I mean, let's use one example. Like, a lot of guys today simp. I'm just going to call it out. They're just simps. And they might be simps or they might just be simping, like the behavior, you know, versus the individual. Like there's good looking guys, like there's probably guys like you out there that simp too, right? That will simp for women. They might simp for other guys. They might be the guys sending the $500 super chats on these streams where these dudes are trying to hold women accountable. You know, that's simping too. There's a lot of guys that simp, you know, when they should be putting themselves first, right? They should be making themselves their own mental point of origin. They should be doing the work on themselves to level up rather than wasting time, effort, money, and resources, you know, on stuff like that. But, you know, to bring it back to the core again, it's recognize your own bullshit, recognize the bullshit that's around you. That's really what unplugging boils down to. If I can narrow it down to two things, that's it. You get those two things right in all areas of your life. If you're fat, lose the weight. If you're broke, make the money. If you're insignificant, be significant. You know, if you don't have social proof, get social proof, right? If you don't have
all of these things
skills,
encompass frame, right? Like this is what
everything,
all these things that you're talking about
everything
is the frame. Right?
It's tied in a frame, yeah. But I mean, how many gym bros do you know that will go to the gym, they'll lift weights, they got wicked, you know, shoulders like boulders, you know, they're big, the traps are popping, bada boom, and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't know how to properly fight, you know. Like, would they be able to handle themselves if they ended up on the ground rolling? Would they be able to, you know, deal with somebody that came at them with a knife or a gun, or do they just look like a big bad dude and not know how to fight, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of elements out there that need to be considered when it comes to the unplugging process, and that's really what I talk about in the first book, and I'm expanding on that even further on the second book right now.
Okay. You said earlier that managing one's energy is super crucial for the development of an individual.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know that your energy is being drained by another individual?
You feel exhausted by the time you're done with them. You'll know, because I mean, if you're in a room with exhausting people, you're just going to feel burned out by the time you're done. Like you need a nap, you're tired, you just feel the energy sucked out of you. Whereas if you're in a room with people or a person, for example, that like charges your batteries, then that's the right person or group of people to be around. So, you know, I have a video on my channel that talks about energy vampires, and they're exhausting to be around. You will know it. Like, it will be like taking a frying pan to the forehead. Like, we've all been there where we've been in a conversation. It's just like, I would rather spend my time banging my forehead against a brick wall than engaging in a conversation with this dude over here or this woman over here. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like, you're laughing. Like, that conversation. We all have.
Absolutely. I see what you're saying. The reason that I'm saying this is because of COVID and, you know, everything that we're talking about and the plugging and being plugged into these lies and all these narratives, and it does weigh tremendously on people's psychological and emotional health. So what would you recommend people that are going through somewhat of a depression or anxiety from these things, from COVID, from feeling like they can't do anything, and how that narrative has now changed their mindset? Like, oh, I have to stay in the house, I can't do anything. Like, I have to change the way I live my life because I have to protect my family, and if I go outside, I am somewhat exposing my family, my loved ones to this potential narrative that if I get sick, I get them sick, and now everyone's life is ruined. Because realistically, that is what is happening right now with the whole COVID and all these new variants that are coming out. It is creating huge amount of fear, huge amount of anxiety, and then that leads to depression, because now they're feeling extremely overwhelmed by their own thoughts of insecurity, of I can't do anything with my life. If I go out and I go get a job, I'm exposing my family to illness. If I stay home and I collect the paycheck from the government, I'm a piece of shit. So now they're, you know, trapped in this cage, wanting to go out, but not being able to go out because this narrative is consuming them, to saying them, if you go out, you're a piece of shit. If you stay in, you're a piece of shit. How do they escape that? What would you recommend for the people out there, not only men, but also women alike, that are feeling like they're not doing enough with their life and
Well,
they're
step
afraid.
one is to turn off the news and
Yeah.
get off social media. I mean,
Okay.
if you're on social media and you're not selling something, like you don't have a product or service that, you're pushing out to the public, you're wasting your time. You're a consumer. Okay. You are a consumer. You are the pleb that's plugged into a screen, giving your attention to them for free. Generally speaking, you're not getting paid for it, and you're generally buying crap you don't need, which could be physical products or it could be lies. Right.
Okay.
So the first step is turning off the news, canceling cable, and stop watching that nonsense. And as far as wanting to be, like to become something, well, start by reading the damn book. Okay. It's on Amazon and it's cheap. I mean, if you want to understand what it takes and what it took for me to go through that entire process, a lot of that is covered in the book. A lot of it is also on my YouTube channel, but it's like doing the damn work, right? You're not entitled to anything. And if you think that believing Big Daddy state and what people have been telling you is going to get what you want out of life, you're sadly mistaken, my friend. You're not going to get anywhere in life. You're going to be a cog in the wheel. You're just another one of the sheeple standing on their dots, wearing their mask, scared, locking yourself up, thinking that that's going to do something productive, and it doesn't. It's a waste of time. You need to take ownership for your life, and you need to disconnect from their comforting lies and unplug. And just start. Just start. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You want to make $1 million? Just start. Start charging people for something that adds value to their life. You want to travel more? Just start. Become more anti-fragile so that you don't have to be compliant to nonsense, right? You think that there's guys out there, you think everybody that's traveling right now has had proof of vaccination and the vaccination? A lot of them just have proof of vaccination, okay? And they're still moving about. There's things that you can do to solve problems, and being a competent guy or gal, understanding things the way they are is the first step. Stop feeding yourself the bullshit, right? Like, you're a fit guy. So, I mean, probably the first thing you do if you're training somebody is, what are you eating? What's in your pantry cupboard? What's in your fridge? What are you consuming? Because the first step in changing what they look like is going to be changing behaviors that got them to what they look like. Okay, now that we've dealt with what you're consuming, let's now deal with what you're doing to move. Like, looking good is not a difficult equation. Move more, eat better. Okay, there's a lot of details, in between all those things, but move more, eat better, and sleep well, if you get out a third one. But those would be the main things. So, a guy like you is going to take a look at those main components and then say, okay, this is garbage. This is garbage. That's just like me going, turn off the news, stop consuming social media, stop simping for OnlyFans, stop simping for these guys that are trying to hold women accountable, giving them super chats, read a book. It's like one small thing after the other that you just kind of set aside. You get rid of the crappy food in the pantry, you get rid of the processed shit in the, the freezer that they microwave and eat it every day for dinner. You take away their option to go eat fast food at the drive-through because they don't have time, sort of thing, meal prep. It's all those things. It's just, again, how do you unplug? You recognize your own bullshit, and then you recognize the bullshit that's around you. It's those two simple steps.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. That was amazing advice right there. Last question. How do you develop genuine human connection? And what do you recommend? What do you think are people lacking in that aspect? Especially now with so the reason I'm asking you this is because COVID also has limited genuine human connections.
Yeah.
Now everything is swipe right, swipe left, hike.
Yeah.
Where are those spaces available, or how do you create that for yourself? Like, what for you is a process of developing a genuine human connection and maintaining?
Well, why don't we use this dialogue that we've just had, you and I,
Yeah.
because I did not know you before I had spoken to you. We've only been on this for like 30 minutes or so, and we've developed a genuine human connection, not even in person, right? So, I mean, I'm even better in person than what I am in a dialogue like this, but you get the idea. I mean, you can do it if you really want it. Be interesting, be interested in other people, be honest about stuff. Like, stop, like people lie to themselves and they lie to others all the time about what they are, what they think, and they have to like water down words and ideas because they got to be politically correct so nobody's offended, sort of thing. You get the idea, right? But you create genuine human connections by being genuine, by being authentic, by having something interesting to say and being interesting as a person, right? Like, that's how we do those things. That's how we develop. That's how we grow. That's how we become better. Younger guys are not as good at it as older guys, you know, is what I found. So one of the go-to things that I've always done as a guy is I always try to like put myself in rooms where I'm not the smartest guy in the room. That might be a physical room. That might be an online room. Okay. And there's times where I am the smartest guy in the room, right? And it's like, you know, okay, well, sometimes you got to send the elevator down to, you know, bring somebody else back up, you know, to sort of educate them, right? Like that's what I do on my YouTube channel. That's what I've done with my book. You know, that's what I do when I have opportunities to have dialogue, you know, with guys like you know, where we go back and forth and sort of chop up ideas. But it's like, get out there and do the work, you know? One of the biggest things I hear a lot of guys, you know, when they call into my live shows is like, well, how do I meet other guys, you know, like you, Rich? Like, how do I network with guys like that? It's like, well, for starters, begin somewhere, you know, interact with people somehow. I also have a private community that you can join. I mean, it's not cheap, it's not free, but it's not $10,000 either, right? I mean, you get in and you start interacting with other guys and you do the work and you network with them. There's local meetups, you meet up with them in person. There's, you know, there's retreats. We just did one in Miami. There was like probably 20 odd guys that, you know, we got down to this big ass place on the water. Like you have opportunities to do it if you immerse yourself in it and then you commit to doing the work on yourself. The big problem that most guys have today is they're too used to being coddled and baby fed, and they think that that's how you level up in life is just you know, it's like I take something and I throw it in a stream that floats and it just kind of goes downstream. Like dead fish go downstream, they just go with the current sort of thing. And that's how most people live their lives. They're not intentional and finding, you know, the direction that they want to swim off in and, you know, committing to it. It's really three words: do the work. And then people say, well, you're not out like lying out for me what doing the work looks like, Rich. Why don't you tell me what doing the work looks like? If you can't figure that out, given all the free content I have on my YouTube channel and in a $10 book you can get on Amazon, then doing the work is not right for you. Go on government assistance or go and sit in some dark corner of the internet complaining with a bunch of other nerds that are unwilling to do the work about how unfair shit is, right?
See, the thing is, like, and the reason that I'm asking this is simple. Everything that we've related goes back into the same mindset. But something that I've stumbled across through thinking about this stuff a lot more is the process that people go through to develop into becoming an adult. And it's basically given everything from being in school to then going to college. You know, I'm not saying that it's easy to get done with college or it's easy to be done with high school, but it's a lot easier than adult life. And I don't necessarily feel that when I was done with college and high school, I was actually prepared to be an adult. And the understanding that I've had to develop through my unplugging process or my red pill process or whatever you'd like to call it, you know, has definitely yielded a lot more results than most of my education. But if you approach every single thing in life with the same mindset, like I'm doing this work to get a result, you know, like I put in the hours into studying in my classes. I went to my courses. I did the work. You know, I did all that. I did the work. I got my degree. Now, you know, I have my master's degree in sports management. And this is one of the reasons why I'm doing this type of content. You know, my bachelor's degree is in communication, my master's in sports management. I enjoy communicating. I enjoy sports, and it's a huge part of my life. And so I know that the people that are listening to this content are potentially also in the same path. So, you know, talking about just get out of your head, put in the work, stop depending on mommy and daddy, stop depending on other people to basically make you do what you need to do to get your life straight is exactly the type of person that I've had to become to be who I am now. And I support entirely, you know, the type of stuff that you put out there. And that's why I wanted to, you know, get in this interview with you, because I think that we lack a lot of accountability nowadays on the people. Like people just want everything handed to them. They want the snake oil. They want the quick answers. They don't want the work. And I believe in hard work. I've been through a lot, but I haven't stopped thriving and continuously working towards my goals and ambitions and what I want out of life. So yeah, it's
Cool.
it's something that it's something that a lot of people just need to get in their head. You want more out of life, you got to give more. It's plain and simple.
I agree. Do the work.
Sir. Well, thank you so much for your time, Richard. I appreciate you hopping in and giving me a quick interview and some of your time. If anybody wants to follow Richard on social media and buy his book, Richard, this is your time to promote your stuff.
Yeah, like I said earlier, it's on Amazon. Just search for my name, Richard Cooper, or the Unplugged Alpha. The cover looks like that. And best place to follow me is probably on YouTube. I've got over 1,000 free videos on the channel. Very, very useful content. So you can go check it out. The channel is called Entrepreneurs in Cars.
Thank you so much.
All right, man.